Imagine this. You stand at the edge of a towering cliff staring down at the ruins of a once great city. Crumbling skyscrapers pierce the horizon like broken teeth. The air hums with the echoes of a civilization that believed itself invincible. Until it wasn't. Now look closer. The streets below aren't littered with the debris of war or natural disaster. No asteroid struck. No plague wiped it out. The people who lived here did this to themselves. Slowly, methodically, generation after generation. They built their own collapse into the system. They wanted this. Or at least, some part of them did. Because here's the unsettling truth. Civilizations don't just collapse. They addict themselves to collapse. They flirt with self-destruction like a man standing at the edge of that cliff, torn between the terror of falling and the intoxicating rush of the void. We see it everywhere, in the way we ravage the planet while pretending to care about sustainability, in the way we drown in digital distraction while preaching mindfulness, in the way we chase progress like a drug, even as it hollows us out from within. Why? Why do we keep building systems that guarantee our own undoing? Why do we cling to ideologies that eat away at the foundations of meaning, stability, and sanity? Why does history repeat itself not in spite of human intelligence, but because of it? This is the great unspoken paradox of civilization. The smarter we get, the more efficiently we engineer our own demise. The contradiction at the heart of progress. Consider the modern world, a masterpiece of human ingenuity. We've conquered. Diseases built vast networks of communication, unlocked the secrets of the atom. And yet, beneath the gleaming surface, something is rotting. We live in an age of unprecedented comfort and unprecedented despair. We have more knowledge at our fingertips than any generation in history, and yet, we are more confused than ever about how to live. We worship growth, speed, and efficiency, while our relationships, attention spans, and mental health crumble under the weight of our own progress. This isn't an accident. It's a pattern, one that has repeated itself since the first cities rose from the mud of Mesopotamia. The ancient Romans poisoned themselves with lead pipes. The Mayans deforested their way to drought. The Soviet Union choked on its own bureaucracy. And now we, the heirs of all these fallen giants, are doing the same, just with smarter tools and faster distractions. The question isn't if we're addicted to collapse. The question is, why? The seduction of the abyss. There's a dark thrill in destruction. Freud called it the death drive, the subconscious pull toward chaos, dissolution, the sweet surrender of entropy. Nietzsche saw it in the way decadent cultures grow tired of life and turn their brilliance against themselves. Jung found it lurking in the shadow, the part of us that secretly craves the fire that purges as it burns. We see it in the addict who knows the needle will kill him, but can't resist the plunge. We see it in the politician who enacts policies that will doom his own people, because the short-term power is too intoxicating to resist. We see it in the ordinary person who scrolls through doom-filled news feeds, paralyzed by the very awareness that their habits are feeding the machine devouring their future. We are a species that builds altars to progress, while whispering prayers for annihilation. And the most terrifying part? We don't even realize we're doing it. The great question. So let me ask you, not as a detached observer, but as someone standing in the same crumbling world. What if collapse isn't something that happens to us, but something we need? What if on some unconscious level, we want the systems to fail, the structures to burn, the old lies to shatter? Because only then can we finally wake up. What if our addiction to collapse isn't a flaw, but a twisted kind of evolution? The answer lies not in the ruins, but in the mind that builds them. And that is where we must go next. The illusion of control picture. A man in a burning house meticulously rearranging the furniture. He smells the smoke. He feels the heat. But instead of fleeing, he adjusts the chairs, straightens the paintings, and tells himself, everything is under control. This is civilization. We are that man. We know the climate is destabilizing, that inequality is tearing societies apart, that our minds are buckling under the weight of infinite distraction, yet we double down on the same systems. That brought us here. More growth, more innovation, more speed. Why? Because the alternative, admitting that the foundation is crumbling, is psychologically unbearable. The denial machine Freud called it repression, the mind's refusal to acknowledge truths too painful to face. Jung saw it in the collective, shadow, the buried instincts and fears a society refuses to name. And Dostoevsky's underground man screamed it into the void. Man is stupid, phenomenally stupid, or rather he isn't stupid at all, but he's so ungrateful that you couldn't, though, find another like him in all creation. We are not blind to collapse. We are addicted to the act of looking away. Consider the hedonistic paradox. We chase pleasure to escape suffering, yet the pursuit itself becomes a form of suffering. Schopenhauer saw this clearly. Life swings like a pendulum between pain and boredom. The modern world, with its endless dopamine hits and hollow luxuries, is proof. The bureaucracy of decay. Huxley warned of a society that destroys itself not with brute force, but with infinite distraction and trivial comforts. A really efficient totalitarian state would be one in which the political bosses and their army of managers control a population of slaves who do not have to be coerced because they love their servitude. The cult of progress, Nietzsche's last men, those who blink in the twilight of civilization muttering, "We have invented happiness," are not relics of the past. They are us. We worship progress like a god, even as it devours meaning, connection, and depth, the psychological roots of self-destruction. Beneath the surface, three forces conspire to keep us locked in this cycle: the comfort of familiar pain, Gabor. Matei's work on addiction reveals a brutal truth. People don't cling to suffering because they love pain. They cling because it's known, predictable, safe. A dying system feels safer than the terror of the unknown. The delusion of separateness, Sartre's bad faith, the lie we tell ourselves to avoid responsibility, manifests in the belief that I am just one person, my actions don't matter. This is how civilizations die, not with a bang, but with a chorus of "it's not my fault." The seduction of symbolic immortality. Ernest Becker, in The Denial of Death, argued that humans build civilizations as monuments to outlive their own mortality. But what happens when the monument becomes a tomb? The unholy trinity of collapse growth. Fetishism, the belief that more equals better, even when it's killing us, meaning crisis, Viktor Frankl's warning. An abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation is normal behavior. A society without meaning will fill the void with consumption, rage, or oblivion. The Stockholm Syndrome of civilization. We defend the systems that enslave us because we cannot imagine freedom. The turning point. This is not a call to despair. It is a call to awakening. Because once you see the mechanism, once you recognize the addiction, you can begin the work of breaking free. But first, you must face the consequences. The invisible scaffolding of collapse. You wake up, you check your phone. The news greets you with fresh disasters, political chaos, economic instability, another species gone extinct. You sigh, swipe left, and open a meditation app. Breathe in, breathe out. For a moment, you feel centered. Then the notifications flood in. This is how collapse unfolds in the modern world. Not with a dramatic explosion, but with 1,000 silent surrenders. We are not ignorant of the crisis. We are complicit in its unfolding. The slow-motion apocalypse. Consider 3 invisible ways civilization's addiction manifests. The attention economy's hollowing out of consciousness. Huxley's prophecy was precise. There will be, in the next generation or so, a pharmacological method of making people love their servitude. We didn't need drugs. We got TikTok. The average person now spends 4 to 6 hours daily on screens, their attention fragmented into ever smaller shards. The result? A populace too distracted to notice the foundations cracking beneath them. The paradox of connectivity. Never before have humans been so connected yet so isolated. Social media replaces villages. Algorithms replace friendships. We mistake visibility for intimacy, trading depth for the dopamine of likes. Studies show loneliness is now deadlier than obesity or smoking. A civilization that cannot bond with itself is one already in collapse. The myth of the green economy. We buy electric cars, recycle dutifully, and tell ourselves we're saving the planet, while the system demands eternal growth on a finite world. This is collapse disguised as progress, the desperate belief that we can consume our way to sustainability. The neurological betrayal. Why don't we stop? Because our brains are wired for immediate threats, not slow-moving catastrophes. The dopamine trap. Our reward systems light up for short-term gratification, scrolling, shopping, sugar, but fail to ignite for long-term survival. Normalcy. Bias. Even as systems fail, we assume someone will fix it, because the alternative is too terrifying to confront. Cognitive dissonance. We know plastic is choking the oceans, yet we still use straws. Why? Because admitting the truth would force us to change, and change is pain. The ghosts of empires, past history whispers warnings we refuse to hear. Rome collapsed not from barbarian invasions alone, but from internal decay, corruption, bread and circuses, distraction, elite detachment, Easter Island, a society that deforested itself into oblivion, chasing ritual and status even as starvation loomed. The Soviet Union, a system so addicted to its own ideology, it starved millions rather than admit. Failure. We are not exceptional. We are repeating their scripts with better technology. The ultimate consequence, the death of agency. The most sinister effect of collapse addiction, it convinces us we are powerless. I'm just one person. The system's too big to change. It's already too late. This is the lie that seals our fate. Because collapse doesn't happen to people. It happens through them. The fork in the road. But here's the secret. Addiction can be broken. The same awareness that reveals the trap also contains you, the key to escape. The awakening. You are standing in a burning room. The walls are scorched, the air thick with smoke. But this time you do not rearrange the furniture. You do not check your phone for escape routes. You do not wait for a hero. You walk through the fire. This is the first act of rebellion. To stop pretending the house isn't on fire. The lie we've been sold, civilization's addiction, thrives on one core deception, that this is the only way. That progress must mean alienation. That growth must mean destruction. That modernity must mean despair. But history's greatest revolutions began with a simple realization. What is man-made can be unmade. The three pillars of liberation. The return to meaning. Viktor Frankl, surviving the Holocaust, discovered those who have a why to live can bear almost any how. Rebellion. Step. Identify the voids you've filled with consumption, distraction, or false urgency. What is the pain you're avoiding? Action. Reclaim. Ritual. Cook instead of ordering takeout. Walk without headphones, write letters instead of texts. Disrupt the autopilot of disconnection. The reclamation of attention, Nietzsche warned, the surest way to corrupt a youth is to instruct him to hold in higher esteem those who think alike than those who think differently. The attention economy runs on conformity. To break free is to become ungovernable. Rebellion step. Conduct a digital autopsy. Track every minute of screen time for a week. Then ask, who owns my eyes, my mind, my hours? Action. Implement information fasting. One day, a week, consume nothing but books, nature, or face-to-face conversation. Notice what hunger arises. The rejection of false gods. Carl Jung saw modernity's crisis as a spiritual sickness. People don't have ideas. Ideas have people. We worship growth, innovation, and efficiency. Yet these are tools, not purposes. Rebellion. Step. Audit your unconscious loyalties. What do your daily actions truly serve? Action. Practice sacred disobedience. Boycott convenience for 1 week. No Amazon, no meal delivery, no multitasking. Observe the resistance that surfaces. The radicals of history learn from those who broke the spell. Diogenes lived in a barrel to expose Athenian hypocrisy. When Alexander the Great asked what he wanted, he replied, "Stop blocking my sunlight." Emily Dickinson rejected industrial-era frenzy, writing, "The soul selects her own society, then shuts the door." Wendell Berry abandoned a prestigious career to farm with horses, declaring, "Do unto those downstream as you would have those upstream do unto you." Their message? Collapse is not inevitable. It is a choice we renew daily. The first brick rebellion begins with one heretical thought: I refuse to participate in my own depletion. Then comes the second: I will build something that cannot be counted, tracked, or sold. The fire at the end of the world. You have walked through the burning house. You have felt the flames lick your skin, inhaled the smoke that once blinded you. And now, standing in the ashes, you realize something terrifying and beautiful. The fire was never the end. It was the beginning, the illusion of collapse. We have been telling ourselves a lie. We assumed collapse was failure, the death of meaning, the erasure of hope. But what if collapse is the only path to rebirth? The forest needs the wildfire to clear the deadwood. The phoenix requires the flames to rise anew. The child must shatter its worldview 1,000 times to grow. Civilization's addiction was never to destruction itself, but to the safety of small deaths. We preferred the controlled burn of distraction, consumption, and half-living to the terrifying freedom of total transformation. The final paradox, here is the ultimate truth, the one that rewires your understanding of reality. Collapse is not happening. To you, it is happening for you. It is the universe's brutal mercy shaking you awake when gentler methods failed. Your exhaustion, a demand to rest. Your disillusionment, an invitation to rebuild. Your rage, the fuel for creation. Nietzsche glimpsed this when he wrote, "You must have chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star." The choice at the edge now. You stand at the precipice, not of ruin, but of absolute possibility. Will you keep rearranging the furniture, stay in the burning house, pretending the smoke is just fog, the heat merely a warm day? Jump into the flames? Let the old identity burn completely. This is not suicide, it is metamorphosis. Build a new house. Not from the blueprints of the past, but from materials you've never dared to use. Slowness, silence, sacred disobedience. The last lesson civilization taught you to fear the ending, but the secret the mystics knew, the one Jung rediscovered in the depths of the psyche, the one Dostoevsky's saints whispered in prison cells, is this: there are two kinds of death. The one that happens to you, the slow rot of compliance. The one you choose, the blazing surrender to something greater. The first is tragedy. The second is liberation. The dawn after the fire look. The sky is lighter now. The air smells of rain and fresh earth. You are still here, not as who you were, but as who you are. Scorched, stripped bare, impossibly alive. This is the gift collapse offered all along, the chance to stop being a citizen of a dying world and become a midwife of the new one. Now, breathe. Begin.